seconds, 60 seconds. If you can hear my voice, clap once. If you can hear my voice, clap twice. Very good. Thank you so much. So as you were going around the room, were there, first of all, was there anyone that was able to get everyone to get all of your circles signed? Please raise your hand if you're able to get all your circles signed. Oh, sweet, sweet. Was there anyone that actually was not able to get anyone to sign anything on their paper? All right, so we all have signatures on our paper. Did you see things on someone else's paper and you said, man, why didn't I think of that? That was a good idea. Can I have 3 of those things? Yes, in the back. Help. So you saw that on someone else's paper and said, I should have thought about that. Let me have someone from over here. Community. You saw that on someone else's paper and said, that's a great idea. And I saw a hand over here. Humor. You saw that and said, man, that was a really good idea. All right? Cool. Were there also things that were either difficult to find someone to sign on, or you actually did not find someone to sign on? Can I have 3 of those things? Yes. Books. Please raise your hand if you value books, even if it wasn't written on your paper. All right? Cool. 2 more. Yes. Ecuador. If you value traveling or going to other exotic places like Ecuador, please raise your hand if traveling is important to you. All right? Great. Yes. Quiet. If being quiet and they got their hands up already. Please raise your hand if quiet is important to you, even if it wasn't written on your paper. Great.
Andre?
Yes.
Joel said he used to value sex.
There's one in every crowd. One in every crowd. So, I'm not going to repeat that. It was something about sex and not getting it anymore. Something, so I'm not going to repeat that. Don't want that attributed to me repeating that thing. So what do you think is what's the object of this particular activity? Why would I start out a presentation with this activity? Common denominators. What about common denominators? That we all have some kind of common denominator, right? Raise your hand if you've been to a diversity training, sensitivity training, cultural competence training, sexual harassment training. Raise your hand in high. Okay. You are the people I have to fix. Because a lot of those trainings, they spend a great deal of time talking about the ways in which we're different. And I believe that those are only partially important. Because it's much more important to recognize the ways that we are similar. When I was growing up in the 90s, Sting or the Police, I can't remember which one, they had a song called I Hope the Russians Love Their Children Too. Does anybody remember that song? Yeah. Why did Sting or the Police, I can't remember which it was, why did they have the hope in the 80s and 90s that the Russians love their children?
Nuclear war.
Because they would not start a nuclear war if they loved their children. And so it's very obvious that they do love their children, especially Crimean children. But that's a whole other conversation with the whole annexing thing. But it's important that we understand that we have so much more in common that our differences actually become minuscule compared to the things that we have in common. All right? So, whether I am a Christian, a Jew, or a Muslim, guess what I want for my kids? Or agnostic, guess what I want for my children? I want the same thing. I want them to grow up happy and healthy and powerful people. And so the differences that we have become minuscule. I think Ronald Reagan said it best. He demonstrated it best in a speech to the UN, and he said, if aliens landed on the planet Earth, we would see how much more we have in common than we have differences. And so I will illustrate that even further with you. So on your when you look at those 5 areas, was there one that had something to do with your race or ethnicity? Did you write down anything associated with your race or ethnicity? If you did, you just wave your paper. Okay, so I don't see any papers being waved. All right? And those 5 things that you wrote down, the things that are important or of value to you, did any of those have anything to do with your gender or your gender identity? Okay, if you did, just wave your paper, so nobody did that. Okay, so for this one, what I want you to do is I want you to jump up and down and wave your hands in the air like you don't care if you can say yes to this next question. Did one of those 5 things that you wrote down have something to do with your prescribed socioeconomic status? All right, so I asked you to write down what? What did I ask you to write down? 5 things that you value or that are important to you. And so race did not come up. Gender did not come up. Socioeconomic status did not come up. Why? Because you're smart. You did exactly what I asked you to do. Was write down the things that are important to you, to me, to us. You see, because race and ethnicity and our religious background, our socioeconomic status, all those things are very important to other people. They're not that important to us. Now, what I'm not saying is that my race isn't important. That is important. But I would say that my humanity is more important than my so-called race. You see, when I was not born black. I'm not going through a reverse Michael Jackson thing. You see, October 30th at 3:44 in the afternoon, my mom is in the stirrups. Those things are scary. And the doctor's there. And so the doctor pulls me out. And then back in those days they had a practice of slapping the baby. So the doctor slapped me, and I did what any self-respecting man would do. I slapped the doctor back. That's an old Richard Pryor joke, probably the only one I can tell. So the doctor hands me off to the nurse, and the nurse puts me on the scale. She starts taking my vitals, how long I am, how much I weigh, all this kind of stuff. And then she gets to the most important part of her checklist that impacts my life. And it was called the category of race. And so she looks down at me, and she looks at my parents, and she looks at her checklist. She looks at my parents, she looks down at me, and she looks down at her checklist. And in those days, there were 3 categories. Black, white, and other. And so she's looking at my parents, and she's looking at me, and she's looking at her list. She finally makes her decision. And what do you think she checked on her list? What do you think? Black, yeah. Right? So she checked black. Now, the thing that I think is very interesting is before she made a decision, what was I? I was a baby. I was a human being. And so I was born human, but America made me black. Because if I was born in Puerto Rico, I would be what? I'd be Puerto Rican or Hispanic black. Right? That's what's on the HR forms, right? Hispanic non-black, Hispanic white, Hispanic non-white, all that stuff, right? But here's the other thing. I also wonder what my life might have been like had she checked something else other than black. It would be confusing for a whole lot of other people. So the racial illogic doesn't define who we are. I think about the President of the United States, President Barack Hussein Obama. I think about him, right? Because he shows up in the world as what ethnic group or what racial group? He shows up as a black man. Is that the sum total of his ethnic identity? No. She's like, no, I know him. No, it's not, right? So his father was a black man from Kenya. His mother was a white woman from Kansas. They got together and they Obama'd. And so as much as he is black, he is also biracial or mixed race. And if we follow the sickness of the racial illogic, as much as he is black, he is also biracial, which also means that he is just as much white. So he could say that he is a white man as much as he could say he's biracial or that he is black. But how would people respond to the President of the United States walking around saying that he is a white man? It's hard enough for some people to believe that he was even born. Nonetheless, and so, when we talk about this concept of poverty, one of the things that we have to remind ourselves is that being poor robs people of or gives the illusion to rob people of their humanity. And so, first and foremost, we are revivers or reminders of people's humanity. All right? So let's get going. I guess if you point it towards the thing, that breaks a little better. Let's go back. guess we'll do this. I just want to talk about some human truths really quick and then get into the rest of this. One, and you'll see these in your handout as well. One of the truths is that human beings can learn, change, and grow. Who I am today is not what was at 17. Thank God. I don't know if you've known a 17-year-old. And the interesting thing about this is that once I understand that human beings can learn, change, and grow, I can hold hope for them in the face of not seeing those things. Right? So there were some behaviors that I had as a 17-year-old, and the adults in my life were like, he will never change. But I did change. I do my own dishes now. Even if I have to buy them each week from Target. People do what they think works even when what? Even when it doesn't work. And why do they do things when it doesn't work? Why do they continue to do that? Because they don't know what else to do. What else? Habit. Why does it become a habit? Well, we've always done it that way. And why have we always done it that way?
Because Mom and Dad did it that way.
Because Mom and Dad did it that way. But why did Mom and Dad do it that way? Because it worked at some point. Have you ever seen a kid kind of just have a meltdown in the store, right? And then throwing a tantrum because they want the, G.I. Joe with the action kung fu grip? Okay, I only got 4 laughs from that one. I'm getting old. And so, is that the kid's first time having that meltdown? Probably not, right? And why are they doing it? Because it worked at some point. It may not be working this particular time, but they know that if I keep doing this, I'm going to eventually get what I want because my parents are weak and tired. So people do what they think works even when it doesn't work, and they do it because it's been successful in the past. Which means that kid who's falling out for that breakfast cereal will continue to use that behavior even if he's 35. And when will he change his behavior? But it's already not working. When he finds something that works, or when he realizes that this behavior doesn't work. And I'm sure you know some adults who are still throwing temper tantrums because they haven't figured out that it works. And for those who keep doing it, if we allow them to keep thinking that it works, they're not going to change it. Next, all human behavior is goal-directed. People are always trying to achieve something through their behavior. I am not a cynic. I like to think that I'm a realist. I don't necessarily believe in purely altruistic behaviors, that people just do stuff for other people just because it's the good thing to do. I think people typically do altruistic things because they get something out of it, even if it's something that's intrinsic, right? Something that they feel on the inside. No. That was not fun, so we'll come back to that in just a second. The next is that attitude is a reaction to a goal. An attitude is a reaction to a goal. What have you been taught about what an attitude is? Anyone ever been accused of having an attitude? Anybody got an attitude right now? What is an attitude? It's an expression, okay? Attitude.
A thought process.
It's a thought process. Attitude.
Manifestation of a thought process.
It's a manifestation of a thought process.
Attitude of frustration.
It's an attitude of frustration. It's an act of frustration. Very good answers. But inadequate for my parents. You see, my parents were raised by folks that we call old school. Right? So their parents were old school. And so my parents went to college and they said, you know what, we want to raise our kids differently than how we were raised. And so, since they had psychology classes and sociology classes, they said, we're going to use psychology to really mold and shape our kids in better ways than how we were molded and shaped. And so, my parents would do that. And when that didn't work, they went back to what they knew, which was yelling and screaming. And my parents would say goofy stuff. Like, my dad would, first of all, I thought my name was Boy for the first 10 years of my life. And my dad would say, Boy, you better fix your face. And so I go, oh. And he sent me to my room because that's not what he was talking about in terms of changing my attitude. Or my mother would just go, she'd go straight to it and she'd say, Boy, you better go to your room till you get your act together. So I'd go to my room, I'd get my act together, I'd step into the hallway, and I'd say, to be or not to be. I spent a lot of time in my room. Because that's not what they were talking about in terms of changing my attitude. But I did get it. I'm somewhat of a late bloomer. So when I was 17, I finally got what they were talking about. And so my father was my pastor. And so on Sunday, we would go to church from 7:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. We'd stop at 3 o'clock for chicken, not because we're black, but because chicken is delicious. So Sunday, church all day. So Friday night, I asked my dad for the car because my dad loves me. What does he say? He says, yes, he loves me. So I get the keys to the car. I'm hanging out with my friends. I fill the car up with gas. I come home before curfew. And my father says I have what kind of an attitude? A good or a positive attitude. What do I say about my dad's attitude? It's good as well, right? So it's good as well. So Friday night we're cool. Sunday, my best friend Dexter calls me at noon and says, Andre, can you pick me up for the movies? What do I know about Sunday? Church. All day. But I'm 17. I'm invincible. And Jesus is my friend. So I go up to my dad and I say, Dad, can I borrow the car? What does my dad say? Not only does he say no, but he gives me a sermon about how I'm leading people to hell. In my household, the worst consequence of anything was that you were going to hell. You didn't do the dishes, going to hell. Didn't make the bed, going to hell. Didn't cut the grass, going to hell. And either you could go to hell on your own, or he would show you the way. So as a part of that interaction, what would I say about my father's attitude? That he has a poor or a bad attitude. What would he then say about my attitude? That it is also a bad attitude or a negative attitude. And so Friday night we're cool. Sunday we have a problem. What defines an attitude? Circumstances? Perception, reaction. Okay, let's bring it home.